Oh, hi. How are you guys doing? Woo! It's been too long, face to face. Just sitting here, having a chit-chat with you all. Happy to be back, but part of me is still back in Edgewood, British Columbia, with all those awesome people at the ostrich farm. Part of me is still on the road. It's a long drive, baby. And then part of me is here. So what you're going to get tonight, because I'm operating on about... So I left Edgewood with Maggie Hope Braun yesterday to drop her off in Calgary. So we left Edgewood yesterday afternoon, BC time, about 1 o'clock. So that's 3 o'clock Central. Got to Calgary, it was about 10 o'clock Mountain. And then I continued on through the night, driving across the prairie. And got here today around 1 o'clock Central time. I got back here, and I thought, if you go to sleep now, you're not waking up and you're not doing a show tonight. So I maybe had a 20-minute nap. And a lot of texts coming in, thank God, buzzing my phone. So I kept waking up. So what you're going to get tonight is a mixture of all of the things that I have seen in the past 2.5 weeks, combined with what's going on in the news today, and weary me as well. So I may be a little bit more provocative tonight than normal. I hope you're okay with that. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm glad you're here. It's Monday, June the 16th, 2025. Who is here watching tonight? Who is here? Brent is watching in Drumheller. Man, I'll tell you, I met some fantastic people, not just in Edgewood, but all across the country. Some amazing people in Golden, British Columbia, in Calgary. Definitely. Thank you, Kathy and Dale, for hosting me at Angels Cafe. That was great. Got to say hi to Shanley, my buddy Shanley in Calgary, for putting me up one night there. I loved that. Thank you. And we had a great night there, just chit-chatting and having a couple of drinks. I'm not going to start naming every name of the people that I met, because I don't want to forget any one person. And that's bound to happen when you've got, like, I don't know, 100, 150 or 200 people. You're bound to forget something. But I will tell you guys this. The experience of the past 2.5 weeks was so good for my soul. And I want to thank you for your patience. Yes, we were doing a lot of lives. Jim Kerr is down there. He's back there as well. So he's going to be keeping you guys up to date. Follow Jim, by the way, Jim Kerr, Pop a Bubble on Facebook. He's going to be keeping you guys up to date on what's going on down there. The cull order is still in place, by the way. And they're still waiting on an emergency appeal and an emergency stay order so we can keep them at bay, the CFIA goons, from coming in at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning or whenever they decide to come. But anyway, that's not what the show is about tonight. If you want, and I will be updating as well. As a matter of fact, there's a video of Katie Pasitny, you know Katie, that's been making the rounds today thanks to a guy called Kyle. This is the woke right. These are the people who believe there's a conspiracy theory behind every door, behind every nook and cranny. Oh, it can't be real. It's a scam. They're grifters. You know those kind, right? The people who absolutely refuse to use any discernment. And everybody is a liar unless they spout the narrative that they themselves spout. Going as far as to actually believe a 3-year-old clip from the CBC as factual evidence, when we know those people take things out of context all the time. But we'll get to that. Hello, Michael and Barb. Barb is watching on Vancouver Island tonight. Welcome, Barb. Patricia's watching in Grimsby, Ontario. Sherry, you're welcome. You know what? That was my pleasure, going out there and meeting so many fantastic people. You don't have to thank me for that, believe me. Hello, Iris. How are you? By the way, guys, go follow me on YouTube. We need to build that platform over there. That there's only like 3,400 followers on YouTube. We need to build that platform up nice and strong so we can get some bigger guests and expand the show. Nancy, how you doing? Stewie, hello. Bob in Sudbury, hello. Penny is watching in Niagara Falls. Ellen, hello. How are you? Yeah. And Abbotsford. Leona is watching in Abbotsford. I was in Abbotsford as well. And I met James and Marcella from BC Strong out there. We had a great barbecue. Thank you, James and Marcella, for hosting Matthew and I. Also met Anita Krishna for the first time in person. That was such a great night. a fantastic experience. A fantastic experience. And people are asking, you going east? Yeah, I'll probably go east at some point this summer. And I want to go back west at least one more time as well. So yeah, this is the year of travel for me. And I'm so grateful that I'm in a position now that I can do that. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for giving me those 2 weeks to do this. I really appreciate that. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you, as always, my friends, by Kevin and Anna, our great friends at CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
CanadaNanoSilver.com. Go and check out the amazing products they have down there. You know, I'm not sure if you guys watched any of my videos from the farm, but I had this weird welt on my face here. It was like, what is that? And there was all kinds of amazing herbal remedies from the folks down there in the community at the ostrich farm. But eventually, I just went for the facial serum, the Canada Nano Silver facial serum. And after 3 days, the welt was like gone. So, yeah, this stuff does work wonders. 1 second, please. I need to share this on X or pin it on X so that people will watch it on X. Did you guys know that X is the largest platform this show has in terms of live viewership? Yeah, it's insane. X. But I see only 376 people watching between YouTube and Facebook and X combined tonight, with only another 169 on Rumble. Did you guys forget about me, or is there a hockey game on tonight? Have I been gone too long? Do I have to rebuild the audience again? Okay, enough about that. Just to finish the thought about Universal Ostrich Farm, we're going to bring Katie on tomorrow night, and a couple of doctors they've been working with to try and finally, once and for all, get rid of these ridiculous woke right myths that have been flying around about the farm. Because, guys, I spent 2 weeks down there. I saw everything that there is to see about how the farm operates without going into the quarantine zone, obviously. I listened to Zoom calls. I know who they work with when it comes to the science of all of this. None of what you're hearing from the woke right is true. None of it. They're taking everything out of context. They're blowing it up, and they're trying to create a problem where none exists. And so this clip that's been flying around of Katie today, you may have seen, is 3 years old. At the time, Katie had not yet woken up. She's been awake now for about 6 months, and she's been drinking information through a fire hose, as we say in the freedom and truth movement. And she is fully aware. She's a quick study, and she's smart. So what she said 3 years ago, which, by the way, wasn't entirely wrong, partially worded wrong. And that's what the woke right is doing to try and make some noise about this whole thing being a shell game today, which it's not. It's not. And if you trust me, and if you've been with me for a long time, you know that I can't lie to you. I'm terrible at it. I've got to tell. You guys know what the tell is when I'm trying to lie? It's something like that. So before we get into the show tonight, I found this today from Freedom Train International. You know that Alberta is going for independence, right? I'm sure you've heard that. Beautiful province. BC is prettier, but it's run by Marxists. We need to get rid of the Marxists in British Columbia, like now. That province is too beautiful and too rich in natural resources and great people to be run by Marxists. Alberta, talking about independence, the independence movement, the petition, all of that. But this theme came out from Freedom Train International a couple of days ago, and I thought you should hear it. So here it is.
Have been cast, the die is set, but Alberta ain't ready to kneel just yet. They chose their king, their power was met, but we don't answer to Ottawa yet. No crown gave us what we've earned, just dirt and fire and lessons learned. Now the ground it shakes, the steel it groans, and Alberta walks alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free. The rigs to the rails, the crops to the code. We lit their streets, we bore their load. They laughed at pride, they mocked the West, but freedom don't die, it just waits for the test. The cowboys ride, the farmers rise, 5 million strong under open skies. No leash, no lie, no foreign throne. This land is steel and it stands alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free.
Right?
Kill the mountain, can't drown the plane, can't burn the spirit that won't be chained. He stares down east with a calloused hand and says, this time we draw the line in the land. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free.
Whoa. I don't even live in Alberta yet. And that gave me goosebumps, man. Incredible. 1 second. Rita, did you make it back into the Telegram group? I see you here. Welcome back. We missed you. I don't know how Telegram bans people, I guess, and I don't know what happened, but Rita's back now. That's great. That's great. Welcome back, Rita. You're back where you belong. Don't forget, guys, sign up for the extension. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a new pandemic they're planning to launch on Independence Day in the United States. The extension starts at 9 o'clock Central on shadowdavis.com. And sometimes we throw it up on the Telegram group as well. So maybe you can watch it for free tonight. Just maybe. David Martin and the Man in America talking about that. Speaking of Danielle Smith, here she is greeting Donald Trump because it is being held in her province, after all. Kananaskis, right? The G-7. Here she is greeting Donald Trump earlier. Okay, and here she is greeting Mark Carney. I'm sorry, I had to throw that one up because I thought it was funny. What could I tell you? Okay, I've got a couple of videos today of Mark Carney, Mr. Elbows Up himself, kissing Donald Trump's ass. So let's throw this one up because he introduced, Carney is the host, right? So he introduced all of the world leaders who were in attendance, and this is the first instance that we see of ass kissing again.
Welcome to Canada. Thank you. It's a great honor. Happy birthday. A few days short. A little bit. A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. Happy birthday to the U.S. military as well, 250th, and this is the 50th birthday, if you will, of the G7. This marks the 50th birthday of the G7, and the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership of the United States, many issues, geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership. Very much looking forward to the meeting and grateful to have you.
Very much.
Elbows up. Here's what Trump said directly after his introduction, by the way.
To that, the G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. And I would say that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in. And you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago. But it didn't work out that way. But it used to be the G8. And now it's, I guess, what's that, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table. So it makes life more complicated. But you wouldn't have had the war. Other than that, I think we're going to accomplish a lot.
What do they say about warfare? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Well, if Putin's a friend, he should be there. Or an enemy, he should be even closer, right? Right? Instead, no. Let him go plot, plan, and scheme 5,000 miles away out of earshot and eyeshot. Here is the second instance of our prime minister. Ooh, I have a hard time saying that. Kissing Donald Trump's butt.
Nostalgia isn't a strategy. We have to change with the times and to build a better world. And some of you, such as you, Mr. President, have anticipated these massive changes and are taking bold measures to address them. All of us around this table are reinforcing our militaries and security services for the new world. But we all know that there can be no security without economic prosperity, and no prosperity without resilience. And in a world where shocks flow across the borders, that resilience comes from cooperation that starts around.
You, Mr. President, for your resiliency and leadership and foresight. You're a visionary, sir. The rest of you suck. Speaking of Donald Trump, let's throw this up on the screen here. You know, there's been these protests in Los Angeles over the ICE raids, right? They're finding illegal immigrants under every sewer cap and car and garbage can. They're everywhere. Well, there's a lot of liberals down there, who don't like that. They don't like the fact that these illegal immigrants are being arrested, detained, and deported. They think that they should be allowed to stay. And so they're having these ridiculous rallies down there, actually more like riots in many cases. Again, with the burning cars and the broken glass and the brick throwing and the spray painting and all of that stuff. And CNN standing there saying a peaceful protest is underway right now in Los Angeles. You know the drill. So from the Associated Press, Donald Trump directs ICE to expand deportations in Democratic-run cities because they're just not happening in conservative-run cities, undeterred by protests. President Donald Trump yesterday directed federal immigration officials to prioritize deportations from Democratic-run cities, a move that comes after large protests erupted in Los Angeles and other major cities against Trump's immigration policies. As a matter of fact, you've still got these blue mayors speaking up saying, no, we'll shield them all. We'll shield. You are totally breaking the law, man. Like, get with the project here. There's borders on every country, or it's not a country. Trump, in a social media posting, called on the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials to do all in their power to achieve the very important goal of delivering the single largest mass deportation program in history. He added that to reach the goal, officials must expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens from America's largest cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside. Trump's declaration comes after weeks of increased enforcement and after Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff and main architect of Trump's immigration policies, said ICE officers would target at least 3,000 arrests per day, up from about 650 a day during the first 5 months of Trump's second term. So here's what happened today to one ICE protester who got a little too worked up. I'm not sure if I would do this if I were driving the car. I'd think about it, though. F around and find out, man. You're going to jump in front of a car. What do you think is going to happen? Never mind jumping in front of a car. You jump on the hood of somebody's car, a car they love, a car they take care of like it's one of their family. What do you think is going to happen? They think they're untouchable because they never got bullied. They never got disciplined by their parents or any teachers. And this, my friends, is the result. A generation of people who think they're completely and totally untouchable. Nothing bad can ever happen to them. Watch her. I mean, obviously, she's still alive. She might be hurt. I think it got her leg. But look at the look on her face. Watch her. Aside from that, this guy here wearing, look at the surgical masks. They're wearing masks. They're not wearing them to deflect germs. They're wearing them to hide their identities, which is against the law. Why don't the cops do anything about that? You can't hide your identity during a riot or mass protest in the United States or in Canada, for that matter. It's illegal. Can't do it. Now she's standing up and screaming. Standing up and screaming. I think she's more shocked than anything, right? Oh my God, that guy ran me over. What did you expect, sweetheart? If that were my kid. Okay, where am I going here? I told you guys I was going to be a little bit disorganized tonight, right? Oh, I know. Some stuff happened while I was away. And we've got this new conservative MP. Let me throw this up here. New conservative MP from Kitchener, I think. Let me find this here. I know I've usually got everything all lined up, but not tonight. I apologize. I hope you guys are in a patient mood tonight. Oh, this one's good too. This is the Conservatives about a week and a half ago ripping this new immigration minister who are still letting millions and millions of illegals into the country in Canada. Go to any Tim Hortons, go to any mall, and you'll see what I'm talking about in case you're from rural Canada. Oh, and by the way, in Edgewood, little small isolated community in British Columbia, the general store in Edgewood is owned by a couple of immigrants recently, the last couple of years. Yeah, find that odd. Why would they want to come all the way to Edgewood? I think there's more to it. Anyway, Michelle Rempel is the first conservative to rip into the new immigration minister, and watch her. Wait till you get a load of her. Woo. I'm glad they put somebody like this as a minister because, man, that's going to be like fodder for me for the next couple of years at least.
Speaker, the Liberals promised to cap foreign study permits, which also allow people to work in Canada. But new data shows that the Liberals blew their cap out of the water by handing out a whopping 500,000 foreign study permits last year, roughly the same population as all of Halifax. Why did the Liberals bring 500,000 foreign students to Canada during a massive housing shortage and while youth in Canada can't find jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees
Here
and
she is.
Citizenship.
Watch.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for that question. Those figures are inaccurate. It's misinformation. This new government is hard at work to improve our immigration system, and the introduction of Bill C-2 Tuesday was an example of that. We are taking
Like, is she doing a Roseanne Barr imitation from 30 years ago? Come on, man. Lena Metlige Diab. Remember that name.
significant steps to preserve the integrity of our system while also upholding our humanitarian commitments, because we understand a well-managed immigration system is essential to a safer, stronger Canada.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Okay, this is one of the best replies that you could ever imagine. Some of you have seen this because it's a couple of weeks old, but I wasn't on the night that this was done. And I thought, I'm bookmarking this and I'm going to play this for you guys because it's awesome.
So I got those numbers from the minister's website. I went on the website and I read them.
Those numbers are false. It is misinformation.
So in the middle of a housing crisis, she brought 500,000 people to Canada. These people compete with Canadians for jobs, require housing and healthcare. If her department's numbers aren't the real numbers, what are the real numbers?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, let me give the opposite member a lesson on
A lesson. A lesson on what? Misinformation?
immigration and on numbers and on permits of visa. There's many applications and many individuals. We recognize that to balance our immigration and to balance and have a good country, we need temporary and we need permanent residents. Some applicants have multiple numbers, and so therefore I would suggest that we look into those numbers a little bit more in detail. Thank you.
The Honourable
Now, I'm just wondering how the Liberals keep finding these annoying MPs to make ministers. I mean, they're a joke. They're caricatures. Pretty much all of them. Which, again, is good fodder for people like me. Man, it's a speaker. Like, could they have found anybody more annoying than Chrystia Freeland? It's hilarious.
Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, despite the Liberals promising Canadians that they're capping immigration, here are the facts. They added over 500,000 more international students. They approved nearly 180,000 more temporary foreign workers. And now we have millions in our country with expired or expiring visas and no plan on how they'll leave. Their mismanagement has put pressure on housing, on healthcare, and jobs. So after missing their own targets to lower immigration and losing control of the system, why should Canadians believe them anymore?
Yeah, that's right.
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, international students are vital to Canada. Just go ask any of our provinces and any of our institutions. So are our temporary foreign workers. They are essential to our agricultural sector, to our fishing.
Okay, so let's make sure that we protect all of the temporary foreign students and foreign workers, but screw all the old stock Canadian kids who can't find a summer job.
To many facets of our population. Having said that, we understand in this new government that we need a balanced system. And for that reason, we have lowered the number of permanent residents as well as temporary numbers. We understand how to balance and how to work efficiently with our system. Thank you.
You can expect to see more from our immigration minister on this show. I might even make blooper reels, highlights, because she's hilarious. And she doesn't know what she's doing, which is par for the course for the Liberals, right? But this one is particularly entertaining to me. I don't know why yet. Annoying, too, of course. Matt Strauss is the new Conservative MP in Kitchener, and he gave this speech. His first speech. He's a doctor. He gave this first speech about a week and a half ago. It's 8 minutes. It's long, but it's well worth watching. So let's do that.
It's been a pleasure and an honor to be a physician serving my community for the last 13 years. So when I went outdoor knocking and I knocked on thousands of doors, one of the most common questions I received was a question I asked myself. Why the heck am I doing this? Why would I go into politics? Don't I like being a doctor, and don't we need doctors? The answer is yes, I like being a doctor, and yes, we need doctors. But to fully explain why I had to do this will take about 10 minutes. It has to do with who I am and what Kitchener is, so here we go. Mr. Speaker, my family story is typical in Kitchener. My dad's family came to the region when it was still called Berlin, Ontario. They came from present-day Germany before it was called Germany. 100 years later, when war with Germany broke out, my grandpa Strauss, like so many other Kitchener Germans, enlisted with the Scots Fusiliers, because your last name and your mother tongue is not of much matter when it was time to stand on guard for our true north, strong and free. We only have a Canada today because Canadians from all over the world put Canada first in this way. They stake their lives for Canadian values, which are enshrined in our anthem as truth, strength, and freedom. Conversely, my mom came as a Romanian refugee from communist Yugoslavia in the 1960s. When my dad was away with the Air Force, we'd speak Romanian in the house. I grew up hearing from my grandparents in that language that they were poor back home. But I had no idea how poor until about 10 years ago. I traveled with my grandfather to his tiny village, now on the border between Serbia and Romania. Fully half the homes there are boarded up. It is overrun by stray dogs and weeds. We went to the house my mom was born in. It had 2 rooms, dirt floors, about 400 square feet. There was a bedroom with 4 beds in it and a kitchen with 2 beds in it. 9 people slept in those 6 beds. As I stood in what I'm sorry to call a shack, the enormity of what Canada had given my family hit me like a ton of bricks. My grandfather is one of the smartest, hardworking people I've ever met. But when he came to Canada, he spoke 0 English, he had a grade 6 education and 2 small daughters with him. After 6 months of working in a factory for $1.09 an hour, he was able to buy a 5-bedroom house in downtown Kitchener for $20,000. That house is now worth $1 million. Mr. Speaker, I don't have to tell you that that opportunity no longer exists in our country today. My 28-year-old brother-in-law recently graduated from the University of Waterloo for mechatronics engineering. He has no hope of buying that house on his engineer salary. Where did that opportunity go? I do believe that my grandfather has the answer to that question. He had to do 3 years of mandatory military service in Yugoslavia, and he always told me that he loved the army life. It didn't strike me until a couple years ago to sit down and ask him, if he loved the army so much, why did he go back to farming in the village? Because, Matthew, you cannot get promoted unless you join the party, that is the Communist Party. Well, then you were an ambitious man, grandfather. Why didn't you join the party? Because, Matthew, if you are in the party and they say this is black, he was pointing at his white tablecloth, then you have to say it is black, even though it is white. English is my grandfather's 5th language. I promise he has never read George Orwell's 1984. But this is exactly the 2 + 2 = 5 scene. I think about this scene a lot when I am told that men can get pregnant. When the truth becomes illegal, everything breaks. If you can't say what's wrong with the tractor, or the levy, or the hospital, or the passport office, you can never fix it, and it will stay broken. So not willing to give up on speaking the truth, my grandfather went back to the village. After a few years, though, the farms were all socialized, and eventually the starvation got so bad they had to make a break for it. Now, I have stories of our healthcare system and universities going back 13 years ago and going up all the way to last fall, when my bleeding postpartum wife spent 6 hours cradling a 2-day-old baby in the emergency room while not being seen by a physician. When I told the triage nurse I was going to take my wife to another hospital in the next town over, he said, "That would be great, thank you. There is no place for her here." If you go to one of our ERs and get treated like cattle, like my wife was at that time, you have no recourse. They would be really delighted if you took your business elsewhere. When farming is socialized, you get bread lines, and people died of starvation while standing in Soviet bread lines. When healthcare is socialized, you get lines in the ER, and I promise you people have died and are dying in waiting rooms, in emergency rooms across this country right now. You might think that I'm being overwrought and seeing the ghost of communism where it does not exist. However, I would note that we just spent 10 years with a prime minister who, when asked which government in the world he most admired, stated the basic dictatorship of the Communist Chinese Party. A prime minister who released a statement lionizing brutal communist dictator Fidel Castro when he died. A prime minister whose answer to every social problem, dental care, child care, pharmacare, school lunch, climate change, what have you, was always more socialism, more central planning, more top-down pronouncements, less freedom to make choices for yourself and your family. The zenith of all this top-down control came during the pandemic. The members opposite went full communism. They locked Canadians down in their homes. They ruined weddings, funerals, Easters, proms, and Christmases. They closed the borders. They kept mothers from children and brothers from sisters. They deprived this House of its ancient rights. They spent $600 billion of taxpayer money with no budget, doubled our national debt to pay healthy 16-year-olds to sit in their basement. Then, as now, they did all this in the name of crisis management. Physicians, professors, and journalists who spoke out against these abuses were hunted down. They had their licenses and their jobs threatened. I know this because it happened to me. At Queen's University, where I taught, Jane Philpott herself, one of the only 2 cabinet ministers to speak truth to Justin Trudeau's power, informed me in her dean's office that the reason the administration had to harass me was that I criticized the government. That is a direct quote. Of course, the Prime Minister and his commissars were immune from all of this. He could attend gatherings of greater than 5 if it suited his political purposes, like a George Floyd protest in Ottawa, and he did. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals claimed unto themselves the power to censor the news, to violate free speech in the name of fighting misinformation, while they themselves promoted misinformation. They gave luxurious contracts to their friends in academia to promote their misinformation. They gave hundreds of millions of dollars to mainstream media to promote government narratives. These 3 institutions, government, media, and the academy, have important roles in society to regulate each other. But under the federal government's bribery scheme, they have ended up, like the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, out to sea, stewing in each other's bathwater. When ordinary, everyday Canadians came here to Ottawa complaining that their charter rights to bodily autonomy, assembly, and free movement were being violated, every member of the Liberal caucus voted to trample their rights further. They violated Section 2 and Section 8 of the Charter in imposing the Emergencies Measures Act. It is not me saying that, but Justice Mosley of the Federal Court. They trampled on the charter rights they claimed to revere, and then they laughed about it. The current Minister of Transport, in particular, laughed about it, Mr. Speaker. If we cannot speak truth to their power, everything will continue to break. And that is why I had to come here, Mr. Speaker. I refuse to be a cog in their broken machine. I hope it is the case that this darkness left with the former Prime Minister, and I beseech the new Prime Minister to turn to the light, to defend those values enshrined in our anthem, truth, strength, and freedom. I read his book, Mr. Speaker. The book was called Values, and freedom, I'm sorry to say, is not among those therein discussed. The repackaging of their socialist plans in bankers' socks might fool some of the people some of the time, but I will tell you who it is not fooling. It is not fooling the multicultural communities in Kitchener-South Hespeler. The Romanians, Albanians, Polish, Ukrainians, Serbians, Croatians, Lithuanians, Venezuelans, Chinese, Somalis, and Ethiopians with lived experience of socialism who know what they are seeing and don't like it and sent me here. They came here for freedom, not just any freedom, but our specific embodied Canadian freedoms. These freedoms are ours, but they are not merely ours, and they are certainly not ours to discard. They were fought for at Runnymede and encoded in the Magna Carta. They were fought for in the English Civil Wars, the Glorious Revolution, and enshrined in the Declaration of Right. They were fought for in the World Wars and enacted in Diefenbaker's Bill of Rights. They were fought for by both my grandfathers, by all of our grandparents, and embodied in all of us here. So the answer to the question of why I came here, I'm here to speak truth to power on behalf of the people of Kitchener-South Hespeler. I will be happy to go back to being a physician and professor once I can practice in truth and freedom again, once we can all live in truth and freedom again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may God keep our land glorious and free.
Oh, yeah, baby. Matt Strauss, Dr. Matt Strauss, Kitchener. So does that give you a little bit of hope, maybe, that the Conservative Party of Canada is not controlled opposition? At least not all of them. The new members rock. Members like Aaron Gunn, for example.
Thousands of good-paying Canadian jobs were lost this week when BC Ferries announced the purchase of 4 new ships, not from shipyards here in Canada, but from shipyards owned by the Chinese Communist Party. This despite BC Ferries receiving more than $36 million in taxpayer money from this Liberal government, taxpayer money that is now subsidizing jobs in China, a country that has kidnapped Canadian citizens and has unjustly tariffed our farmers and our fishermen. Will this Liberals government stop pretending they're helpless, show leadership, and demand these ships are built in the best country in the world, right here in Canada?
Now, to be fair, the Liberal minister in charge of that file is not in charge of that file because it's a provincial matter, and he said so. But still a good move by Aaron Gunn to bring it up in federal parliament because that shines a nationwide light on it, right? And the story, by the way, is sadly true. What is with Canadian politicians? It seems like they're either in somebody's pocket, beholden to a extreme ideology, or psychopaths. We'll get to that in just a second. By the way, that's not exclusive to Canada, but sadly, it is now happening here much more than it used to. Seems more prevalent, doesn't it? From BIV, Business Intelligence for BC, Rob Shaw says, the BC NDP slams their own premier over the China Ferries deal. Wasn't David Eby one of the biggest elbows up guys of them all? No, screw the States, but let's work with China. He's also in bed with China, I believe, even though our buddy on Substack has not been able to prove it. Sam Cooper from the Bureau, he's been reporting on this stuff for the last, I'm going to say 15 years. He hasn't been able to make that connection, at least not publicly yet, with David Eby. But Eby knows a lot of stuff about China and their involvement in the ports and in Canadian politics, the judicial system, law enforcement, all of the boards that make up professionals across the province and across the country. Emergency motion from Labor allies rebukes Eby for outsourcing to authoritarian regime instead of investing in BC shipbuilding jobs. Let's give the jobs to communist China. The BC NDP rebuked its own leader in government over the weekend for allowing the taxpayer-owned BC Ferries operation to contract out construction of its ships to China. I can't quite get Trump's inflection on that right. I'll work on it. China. Can't do it. China. The move occurred at an NDP provincial council meeting on Saturday where David Eby was grilled for his refusal to override BC Ferries and direct the ships he built be built in BC with new investments to grow a domestic shipbuilding industry. Wonder what his rationale is. Let's see if the story has Eby's rationale. Why? The provincial labor movement, which that's right, the NDP is all about labor, or at least supposed to be all about labor. Workers, the little guy, right? Let's get some good jobs here in BC. Oh, no, let's give them to China instead. The provincial labor movement, which makes up a powerful base within the NDP, brought forward an emergency motion to demand BC Ferries be subject to the same BC-only procurement rules the Eby government put in place for the rest of the public sector at the start of the U.S. tariff war. The resolution was sponsored by the BC Federation of Labor, United Steelworkers, and CUPE BC. The motion passed, but it's non-binding to the government. But it does serve as an admonition to the Premier that the party is displeased with the direction of BC Ferries and his government on the issue. What can they do? Can they remove him? Do they have that kind of power in BC like they do in Alberta? I wonder. The vote followed an extraordinary 24 hours of tension between the Eby government and organized labor, which have spoken out publicly against BC Ferries. The BC Federation of Labor, BC Building Trades, BC Ferry and Marine Workers Unions all criticized BC Ferries and the government for a $1 billion deal with the brutal, hostile, and authoritarian Chinese regime. These guys are hypocrites. Hypocrites in pocket or psychos. Here's our favorite blender guy to tell us more about psychos in power.
Like the Western world has gone insane over the last decade, you're not wrong. The madness has a name: political ponerology, the study of how psychopaths take over societies. According to Polish psychiatrist Andrew Lobachowski, psychopaths, sociopaths, and individuals with deep psychological disorders infiltrate institutions not by merit or integrity, but by their unrivaled ability to lie, manipulate, and destroy. The result is pathocracy, a system ruled by the disordered, where moral, competent, and sane people are pushed out, silenced, or destroyed. Here's how it unfolds. Essential psychopaths rise to the top. Lacking empathy, driven by narcissism, manipulation, and sadism, they view society as a playground of power. In a corrupted system, their evil traits aren't a liability, they're an asset. Schizoids serve as the ideological architects. Detached and theoretical, they create inhuman policies with utopian logic. Lockdowns, depopulation agendas, safe supply drug programs, all coldly detached from their human cost. Spellbinders are the charismatic mouthpieces. Celebrities, pundits, and influencers who captivate the public with slogans about equity and safety, disguising tyranny as compassion. The spellbound are true believers. Hypnotized, These are the foot soldiers of the regime, convinced they're on a moral crusade while defending totalitarianism. Adapted conformists know better, but comply. They just follow orders to keep their jobs, reputations, or social standing, gradually numbing their conscience in the process. The resistors see through it all. They retain empathy and moral clarity, but are hunted, censored, and scapegoated for refusing to kneel. Then there's the bystanders, the majority of the population who are confused or afraid. Some slowly adopt to the regime's norms just to avoid conflict. Their silence enables the system to metastasize. Look around. Violent criminals are freed while whistleblowers exposing government corruption are harassed and threatened. Kids are taught gender dogma while literacy collapses. Bureaucrats push equity while freezing bank accounts. None of this is accidental. It's the end state of ponerogenesis. In a pathocracy, truth is treason, insanity is extremism. The system rewards the disordered and punishes the moral. This is not liberalism, it's not progress, it's a psychological coup. Until we recognize that we're not fighting bad ideas but pathological people, we will keep losing ground. This is not left versus right, it's sanity versus madness. And until sanity takes power back, the collapse will continue.
All right. So are these psychos? Are they? I mean, you could argue that in order to follow that ridiculous intersectional ideology on the left, like men can be women, women can be men, war, yay, illegal immigrants, all of that stuff, porn in schools, you would have to have a screw loose, wouldn't you? I mean, think about it. Like, if you're a rational, sane, common sense person, all of that stuff is objectionable. But to them, it's like the best thing that could ever happen. So what is the agenda? What is the architecture? Remember, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm working on like 20 minutes of sleep over the last day and a half, so I'm tired. I might mumble a bit tonight, you guys. You're going to have to put up with me tonight. But what is the architecture? Seriously. What is the plan here? Has it been revealed by this article? Thank you, Michael, for this one, by the way, from Escape Key on Substack. Escape Key on Substack. The complete architecture. How scientific socialism captured global governance. A comprehensive analysis of the institutional, operational, and enforcement mechanisms that have transformed the Venice Declaration's vision into operational reality. So let's go down here and have a look at this. I see that only 82 people have liked it and only 36 comments. So not enough people have seen this. But let's go have a look here. This analysis documents a systemic 130-year project. Oh, good. We're going back a ways. That's constructed the most sophisticated totalitarian apparatus in human history, one that operates through moral authority rather than political coercion. The documentary record reveals identical institutional templates, coordinated implementation timelines, overlapping networks of architects, and deliberate replication of governance mechanisms that defined the worst totalitarian regimes of the 20th century. See, we're always comparing to Mao and Hitler, right? The difference is scale and sophistication. Where Hitler, Stalin, Mao operated at national levels through crude political apparatus, this system operates globally through technical expertise and ethical mandate, making it far more insidious and potentially irreversible once fully activated. How close are we is the question. The foundational mechanism is the systemic replication of the hierarchical clearinghouse model first perfected in British banking across every domain of social organization, creating apparent decentralization while concentrating ultimate control at the apex. Through 10 integrated vectors spanning ideological capture, professional control, information management, economic compliance, and technological surveillance, this system has achieved what the 1986 Venice Declaration envisioned: science positioned as the source rather than the subject of ethical frameworks all across all aspects of the human experience. The result is operational scientific socialism, where resistance becomes literally unthinkable. Bio-digital convergence, right? What was in that shot? Economic survival requires expert compliance. Professional advancement requires ethical conformity, and democratic dissent is pathologized as moral failure, just like 1984. The Venice Declaration analysis demonstrated how science successfully claimed moral authority across 11 domains of human experience, positioning itself as the source rather than the subject of ethical frameworks. What remains is to trace the concrete mechanisms through which ideological capture became reality. The evidence reveals a systemic 130-year project that's constructed the most sophisticated totalitarian apparatus in human history, one that operates through moral authority rather than political coercion. This is not hyperbole. The documentary record shows identical institutional templates, coordinated implementation timelines, overlapping networks of architects, and deliberate replication of governance mechanisms that defined the worst totalitarian regimes of the 20th century. The foundational mechanism underlying this transformation is the systemic replication of a hierarchical cleaning house model across every domain of social organization, first perfected in British banking, local banks, clearing banks, Bank of England, Mark Carney. This architecture creates apparent decentralization while concentrating ultimate control at the apex. The pattern was methodically exported. The Federal Reserve replicated the British model in 1913, right after the Titanic sank, by the way. The Bank for International Settlements scaled it globally in 1930, and the same template now governs, where was I here? And the same template now governs virtually every aspect of modern life. Local institutions operate with apparent autonomy while remaining dependent on higher tier clearing functions that can override local decisions during exceptional circumstances. What's going on with Universal Ostrich Farm right now? Who's controlling CFI exactly? CFIA. Is it the Canadian government or is it some world organization like, I don't know, the World Animal Health Organization, working with the World Health Organization? These have become permanent features of the system. We're very close. I want you guys to go ahead and find this. I'm going to put this in the comments here on all platforms tonight, so you can go ahead and find this at your leisure. But please go ahead and find this because it's important you read this. It's a lot longer than what I've shown you, and I don't want to read the whole thing for two reasons. Because I've got a video I want to play, and because I don't think I could get through it right now without sounding like I'm drunk. I'm not. I'm just extremely tired. So, it's Pride Month. Our friend Raylan Fox was, we think anyway, served with papers, a lawsuit today. We're not sure. We're not sure if the papers are legit, so we're going to check it out with a lawyer. But she's been putting out videos again. Oh, she never stopped, actually. So please, she needs some love. She needs some followers. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on Rumble. You can find her on X. You can find her on Facebook. Raylan Fox. R-A-E-L-Y-N. Raylan. F-O-X. Or I think Foxden on Instagram. Either way, she has got an open letter to the Manitoba Premier. And by the way, there's books in all public schools in every province, maybe except for Saskatchewan, in this country. So this is applicable to everybody watching this right now, grandparents, parents alike. And if you're a grandparent, I know it's a difficult conversation to have with your kids about the grandkids, but you have to let them know that these books are in school, public schools and public libraries, available to wee little kids. So here is part one of Raylan's open letter to Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, and you can find part two on one of her many sites on all the different platforms I just talked about. Watch.
Dear Honourable Wab Kinew, Premier of Manitoba, informed members of the public have become increasingly concerned that Manitoba's public institutions are facilitating a situation wherein children can be coerced, lured, or compelled to perform sexual acts with or without their consent due to the increasingly sexual graphic books videos, and tools that are finding their place in libraries, classrooms, and on school grounds. This material, by its very nature, elicits arousal as it introduces children to sexual acts, normalizes underage sexual activity as sexual exploration, and provides detailed depictions of child sexual abuse. Sexually explicit literature is being displayed in the view of the youngest of children. Yet most parents and school administrators remain unaware of the existence of this material and its attendant risks. Provincial child protection laws require the public to report situations wherein harm or injury could endanger the health, life, or emotional well-being of the child. Thus, I address you today to bring your attention to child sex abuse materials being made available for use by our most vulnerable, our children. Please take the time to acquire a physical copy of the book Let's Talk About It, either online or in a Winnipeg public library. Alternatively, you can view the objectionable sections of this book via the online link in the description below. And if all else fails, I'm sure the Kildonan East Collegiate or the Murdoch McKay Collegiate would be more than happy to lend you one of their copies. Neither is this book catalogued as educational, nor was it written by experts in childhood development, child psychology, or education. Rather, the authors are comic book artists. Ironically, on the front page, the authors of the children's book include the statement that they disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects that may result from the use or application of the information contained in this book. Let's Talk About It uses comic book style images of hands gripping penises, fingers and vaginas, and exposed anuses to give step-by-step instruction on sexual touching to achieve orgasm, with or without an object. The South Central Regional Library Director, Kathy Ching, argues that Manitoba Education supports materials such as this as educational and age-appropriate for children. Therefore, Let's Talk About It remains in the children's section of the SCRL library, despite strong concerns by thousands of tax-paying signatories from the region who see the material as obscene and in violation of the Criminal Code of Canada, which states the following: Invitation to sexual touching. Every person who, for a sexual purpose, invites, counsels, or incites a person under the age of 16 years to touch, directly or indirectly, with a part of the body or with an object, the body of any person, including the body of the person who so invites, counsels, or incites, and the body of the person under the age of 16 years, is guilty of an indictable offense. Let's Talk About It is only one example of an ever-expanding selection of sexually graphic books targeting kids. Over 60 books have been identified in Prairie Rose School Division's Carmen Collegiate alone, the school having a dedicated room to house graphic and explicit materials for students. And although a glut of special interest groups has devoted themselves to the promotion of such materials for children, they do so based on biased surveys, storytelling, and feelings. These organizations lack the backing of evidence-based education practice to legitimize policies that defend children's access to sexually explicit materials. The lack of high-quality research to support the claim that sexually explicit materials are educational may be due to the difficulty in obtaining research ethics clearance to perform experimental studies on minors, experimental studies being the gold standard of quality research. It is more likely, however, that ideological beliefs and political pressure are leading to this paradigm shift, and not new academic knowledge. At any rate, children and their communities have been enrolled unwittingly in a natural experiment that goes against our best instincts and our current laws by exposing children to sexually explicit material. Despite the lack of experimental research, we do have the findings of decades of observational studies of the impacts of pornography on minors that tell us what we can expect from exposing children to sexually explicit materials. These studies demonstrate that the higher the degree of sexual explicitness, the more detrimental to the children consuming sexually explicit content. And we know that this effect is worsened by the absence of a trusted parent or guardian. In summary, there is no recommendation in the peer-reviewed literature that sexually explicit imagery should be used in sex education materials for minors. The Manitoba School Boards Association defines child sexual abuse material as actual but also fictitious written depictions of child sexual abuse, also known as child pornography. The MSBA must submit to the laws that govern Canada. This statement is the MSBA's legal alignment with Section 163 of the Criminal Code of Canada, which defines child pornography as any written material whose dominant characteristic is the description of sexual activity with a person under the age of 18. A phone call to the Manitoba Status of Women's Secretariat on May 24, 2023, confirmed that, in fact, An adult showing pornographic material to a minor is considered child abuse. Why then would Manitoba school divisions continue to defend, for example, materials that contain the graphic written depiction of a 13-year-old girl being sexually assaulted? Why would Prairie Rose School Division trustees refuse to remove a book that contained the following? Quote, "Come on now, Kat. Let me feel how wet you are. I didn't know what he meant. I pressed my spine into the sofa to get away from him, but moving like that raised my hips and loosened the hug of my shorts. His fingers slithered under my panties." By that point, Tommy had unbuttoned my shorts and yanked them down around my thighs, along with my panties. I was gripping them, trying to get them back up, but he was stronger. He got one finger up inside me. I whimpered. He kept at it, the heel of his palm driving into my pelvic bone, until he got in 2 more. Then he moaned. However obscene, it is clear that Manitoba's trustees believe that they have been forced to bring these materials into schools under the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But is it true? Does Manitoba education require divisions to bring this sexually explicit material into schools? Can DEI policies trump age appropriateness, safety, and the criminal code's definition of child pornography? Will DEI policies exempt librarians and trustees from liability? In a recent letter, Manitoba's education minister was asked to define the boundaries around sexually explicit materials entering public school libraries. You are. I didn't know what he meant. I pressed safety and the criminal code's definition of child pornography. Will DEI policies exempt librarians and trustees from liability? In a recent letter, Manitoba's education minister was asked to define the boundaries around sexually explicit materials entering public school libraries and classrooms. In response, Rhonda Shaw, the executive director for the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning, stated, "While the department is responsible for curriculum development, we do not review or recommend individual resources for schools. School divisions provide their own recommendations and select resources that match the needs of their community. This includes the collections found in school libraries." This parallels Manitoba Education Support Document, My Gay Straight Alliance, which lists books and movies to watch during Gay Straight Alliance meetings. This document places full responsibility for resources being used and shown to minors back on the school division with the following caveat. The list of books that follow may be useful resources. However, they have not been reviewed through a Manitoba Education and Advanced Learning formal resource review process, nor are they endorsed by the department, and they do not carry a Manitoba recommended designation. All literature or other educational resource selections should be reviewed by school division staff before they are used by students. So, while it is undeniable that Manitoba Education opened the door to these materials, they do not take responsibility for the selection in Manitoba schools. Manitoba Education does not define these books as educational.
They're doing it through an NGO, right? So, who's the NGO? Let's see here. Let me pull this up. Oh, it's Planned Parenthood. Raylan has discovered that the NGO is, in fact, Planned Parenthood. Well, then why does that say Action Canada for Sexual Health Rights, Shadow? Because if they used the name Planned Parenthood, we'd be able to find them easier. And just like all of the other organizations, like ICLEI, they changed their name, province to province, country to country, so people can't so easily track them down. Planned Parenthood Canada is called Action Canada. SHR.org. That's how you can find them. Good job, Raylan, on that video. And guys, please, come on. She deserves some followers. So look, here she is. That's my thing. Here she is here on Instagram. Raylan_Foxden. She's a Christian, and she has 666 followers. I'm sure that number disturbs her a little bit. So please, if you're on Instagram, go and follow her and get that number up above 666 for us, please, because that's a horrifying number. Raylan, RAELYN _Foxden on Instagram. And then you can find her where she posts her videos on Rumble, where she has only 142 followers. Are you serious? She does a lot of work on this, you guys. She's very passionate about this, and 142 followers. Raylan Fox, all one word. If you're watching on Rumble right now, who's watching on Rumble tonight, by the way? Leanna Loyola, and Wannakeeper, Chicken Hair, Tango North, Lone Arnie. All you guys, go ahead and follow her. You're on Rumble already. Raylan Fox, all one word on Rumble. And if you're watching on YouTube tonight or you're watching on whatever platform tonight, I want to throw in a plug for myself. Why not? Shadow Davis on YouTube. Let's get the numbers up on YouTube. And if it takes me having to remove Facebook for a couple of weeks so you guys have no choice but to go to a different platform, and I'm hoping you decide to go to YouTube, we got to get these numbers up on YouTube, because then once we do, and on all the other platforms, by the way, like on X, if you're not following there, go follow there. I like Facebook, Shadow. I don't care. Go follow on all the platforms. Also, Rumble. Follow on Rumble as well. Go find me on Rumble. It's easy to find. The Shadow Davis Show. That's what it's called on Rumble. Go follow there as well. And go hang out with the people on Rumble. Sometimes they feel like outsiders. And they're not. They're all part of the family. So follow on as many platforms, because you never know. They might bring the censorship thing back. They might. Or they might try to. So the more platforms you're following the show on, the better. And of course, become a member, a subscriber. Nighthawk at shadowdavis.com. We're just about to get into the extension tonight. The extension tonight revolves around Man in America, and his guest is Dr. David Martin. And of course, Dr. David Martin's been doing so. Now, if we had a bigger platform where more followers, we just passed 60,000 on Facebook, which is cool. That's great. But we need the other ones to grow as well. If we had more followers, we could get guests like Dr. David Martin, because he'd look and go, oh my God, 500,000 followers. I got to go on this guy's show. Right? So that's where you guys got to go in and start liking on YouTube, following, subscribing. What do they say? Smash the like button. Go to YouTube. That's the big one. 90% of people who look for videos online, or even higher than that now probably, go to YouTube, not to the others. So we have to grow YouTube. Anyway, Dr. David Martin tonight is going to discuss some plans that he has found through document digging, which is his specialty, that there could be a pandemic launched on American Independence Day, the 4th of July. So we're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. I want to thank you for being here tonight, you guys. After a couple of weeks away, it's nice to come home and see you all here. Thank you very much. I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I will catch you. I can't find my thing here. I can't find my normal. Oh, there it is. They changed things since I've been away. Anyway, I love you all. I appreciate you all. Catch you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, for another Shadow at Night live stream. Oh, and we're going to try and get Katie from Universal Ostrich Farm and a couple of doctors on tomorrow night to discuss what they do at that farm. And what we're going to do is that CBC video that's been flying around. That's 3 or 4 years old now, of Katie. Taken out of context. Her wording was wrong, which she says, yeah, I said that wrong. We're going to explain that, because that's what the woke right is using against the ostrich farm today. Kyle Cardinal holding up a phone of a 3-year-old video going, see? So we're going to explain all that, hopefully, tomorrow night on the show, starting at 8 o'clock Central. The extension coming up in 2 minutes' time. I'll see you guys there in just a couple of minutes. And go become a member if you're not. Keep the show going. I'll catch you guys later on. Bye for now.